I put an attorney general that never took control of the Justice Department, Jeff Sessions, never took control of the Justice Department. And it's a sort of an incredible thing.
President Trump there leveling new attacks against Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And now the Attorney General has responded in a fairly extraordinary statement, saying in part, I did take control of the Department of Justice the day I was sworn in. While I'm Attorney General, the actions of the Department of Justice will not be improperly influenced by political considerations. Joining me now is someone who has sat in that office. Alberto Gonzales is the former U.S. Attorney General under President George W. Bush. General Gonzales, thanks as always for being with us. You see danger in the president's attacks here. Explain.
Well, it's a remarkable exchange, isn't it? What I worry about is that, the president's head of the executive branch, and he decides who serves in his cabinet, and to continue to criticize the attorney general, I think, makes the president appear weak. If, in fact, there is displeasure in his service, then he has an obligation, from my perspective, to make a change. But what I also worry about is the fact that constant attacks upon the attorney general, I think, weakens the authority of the attorney general. I think it damages morale within the Department of Justice. And I think, I think if the president is unhappy with the attorney general, he should make a change. I don't say that with the intent to have Jeff Sessions fired. I say that hopefully with the intent to encourage the president not to be so public of his criticism of a cabinet official. And every president, of course, has from time to time displeasure in the performance of a cabinet official, but normally that displeasure is communicated privately, and if that displeasure continues, there is a change. Yeah. And so, I worry about the constant criticism of the attorney general by this president.
You can have a conversation face-to-face. You can have a conversation on the phone. It doesn't have to be on Twitter or Fox News. The president is bragging that he puts the word justice in quotation marks because he feels that there is so much corruption there. Is there a potential lasting impact that this has on the entire criminal justice system?
No question about it. I mean, we have the greatest, I think, criminal justice system in the world, and I think it's envied by many people around the world. But the constant criticism, the second guessing of decisions at the Department of Justice, I think, does have a lasting impact. Every time a U.S. attorney appears in court on behalf of the United States of America, there has to be confidence in the integrity of the words that attorney utters in that courtroom. And when you have constant second guessing and criticizing of the department, that I think it damages that reputation and hurts the morale. Now, let me be clear. Mistakes have been made at the senior leadership of the Department of Justice, and when mistakes are made, there needs to be accountability, and those mistakes need to be called out. I just think there's a better way of doing it, and you're doing it in a way that makes the president appear strong and in control and doesn't do damage to the Department of Justice.
So the day after, less than a day after, less than 24 hours after the Attorney General said that the actions of the Department of Justice will not be improperly influenced by political consideration, the president, just over the last few minutes, has made new demands of the Attorney General, pressing the Attorney General, and he's doing it on Twitter, to go after some of his political opponents. Once again, posting tweets that he wants the Justice Department to investigate all kinds of Democrats for all kinds of things. Is this the appropriate use of influence from the President of the United States?
Well, I think obviously, I think the Attorney General has an obligation to look at what the President is requesting. He is, in fact, in charge of the executive branch. But the Attorney General should not make any decisions that are not consistent with the evidence and not consistent with the good judgment that he has, that in fact a crime may have been committed here, and there needs to be an investigation, and the department needs to move forward with an investigation, with prosecution. Again, the president's head of the executive branch. He can express views to the Department of Justice. I would like to think it would be better done privately, because to do so publicly raises the allegations, accusations that, in fact, the president wants the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies, and I think that does further damage to the Department of Justice. So there are other ways to communicate that, but I think Jeff Sessions has an obligation to make sure that the forces of the Department of Justice are not used for political ends, as he said in his comment yesterday.
You've suggested that the president should stop talking about this. If he wants the attorney general to go, he should just fire him. What about Jeff Sessions? What should he do now? Would you ever take this kind of abuse? Look, I can't imagine President George W. Bush ever going after you like this. You're laughing. It would never happen. But in that bizarro universe where you're the attorney general of the United States and the president says these things about you, would you quit?
Listen, I think Jeff Sessions is not going to quit for these reasons. I think this is the ultimate job as a lawyer. It's a tremendous responsibility, but a tremendous privilege. I think he loves this position, and he rightly should. I think also he's worried if he quits, what's going to happen to the Department of Justice. I know he loves the department, and as Attorney General, he has a means to protect it. And so, and of course, he wants to protect the ongoing investigation. So I think Jeff Sessions is not going to quit. I think he will have to be removed. And for the reasons that I just outlined, I think that he believes he's done a good job, has carried forth the president's law enforcement priorities and policies. So I think if the president wants to change, I think the president's going to have to make that change by himself.
You spent your career in various levels of law enforcement and the law here. When the president says that flipping should almost be illegal, what's your response to that?
My response is, why would the President of the United States, head of the executive branch, and in essence, head of the Department of Justice, want to take away a valuable tool that's so important to the enforcement of justice, the enforcement of law in this country? And it is. Without the ability to get cooperation from potential witnesses, it makes it impossible, certainly difficult, if not impossible, to prosecute certain kinds of crimes. And so it's counterproductive, quite frankly, to the mission of the Department of Justice, and therefore counterproductive, I think, to what Donald Trump should want as President of the United States.
Well, it's not counterproductive if what you're trying to do is protect yourself from prosecution. I mean, why would he criticize flipping? Because it might be hurting him right now. Former Attorney General Humberto Gonzalez, always enlightening to speak to you. So thank you so much, sir.